Hello, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. My name is Sarah, and today we are doing the first installment of Brutally Honest Career Chats. So I posted a day in my life as a software engineer video a couple of days ago. A lot of you guys liked it and a lot of you guys had questions. So today I just wanted to sit down and answer some of those questions. Also, if you have any questions in the course of watching this video, definitely leave it down below. And the first thing I did want to say is any of the opinions that I state are opinions of my own and not affiliated with my school, company, or any other entity that I talk about. So the first topic area is mainly about my background and how I ended up getting a job at Google. For some context, I am a software engineer working at Google right now in the New York City office. I graduated in 2019 with a degree in computer science, and it feels like yesterday, but it also feels like so distant. I'm getting old. And I started working at Google immediately after I graduated. So that is a little bit about myself, and now we can kind of get into the questions. So the first question is, did I know what to study out of high school? The answer is no. I had no freaking clue what I was going to study out of high school. I actually really wanted to be an artist when I was growing up, and then there was a huge phase in my life where I was wanting to be a fashion designer. When I was a kid growing up, I just saw all these male-dominated career paths, and I never really considered it until I got into high school. And I took a lot of STEM classes, and I realized, one, that there are subjects that I really liked, like AP Physics, biology, and by the time that graduation came around and I had to do the whole applying to college, deciding what I wanted to do thing, I'll be honest, I still wanted to do something creative, but in terms of stability and safety and security and financial security that I could provide for my family, I think a STEM field came out to be the most secure option. I decided to very seriously apply to college as a STEM major, and I don't know if I regret it or not. There's a lot of times when I think about the person that I am right now, and I wonder if I would be very different had I chosen, to apply to like Parsons or something. So that's kind of what I knew coming out of high school. So the answer is no. Very roundabout way of saying no. I feel like if you're a high school student watching this, definitely no pressure to know what you want to do. So many of my friends also went into college not knowing what they wanted to do and figuring it out halfway through their career or even towards the tail end of their career. The next question is, where did I go to school and what did I study? I went to Princeton University and I studied computer science. And that kind of leads us into the next question, which is how did I decide my major and what was I considering outside of that? I was very clueless going into college. I had taken one computer science course my senior year of high school. I really enjoyed it, but I never saw computer science as my major. I even told my mom, I'm never going to study computer science. It's just not me. For some reason, I thought computer science was X, Y, and Z, but it turned out to be completely different. I took my first computer science course my freshman year. As a Bachelor of Science candidate, I was required to take one computer science class, and it was just the introductory one that everyone took. That class was so eye-opening. If you are in college, I highly recommend you to take a computer science class. I think the skill set that you learn and the technical abilities that you acquire from taking a computer science class is very critical, literally and metaphorically. Out of all the classes I was taking, besides my humanities classes, I really enjoyed my computer science class. Math, on the other hand, that was a tragic class. I thought I was good at math going into college. Whew. Yeah, that was kind of my college career in a couple of sentences. In terms of other majors that I was considering, I was looking at the pre-med track, but I don't know if I was seriously considering it because there were so many requirements, and anyone doing pre-med, I was just like, that does not look fun. Next question is if I did any internships before I graduated. It was really hard to find something my first 2 years. So the first summer that I was applying left and right to everything I could find that I was qualified for. So things from programs, I think Google has a program that I got rejected from, engineering practicum. I applied to internal programs at school, and I was emailing people. I was down bad, and it was really hard for me to get something. And I think one of the last things that I interviewed for was this global seminar. It was actually a French theater acting seminar, and I had not done any acting before, unless you count my stint as the main rabbit in Who's in Rabbit's House in 3rd grade. But that was kind of the first summer experience that I got, and I realize this question is now about internships, but getting into internships. The next summer, I actually ended up doing this program. So Princeton has a program called the Startup Immersion Program. I don't know if they still have it anymore, but when I was there, they had a New York branch and a Tel Aviv branch. Essentially, you could apply to 3 different internships with different startups in those areas, and I decided to focus on New York City because I wanted to be in the city. I had never lived in New York ever before. I ended up getting an internship at this company called, oh man, I don't even remember, Trendalytics. Trendalytics was the company. I was like, this is great. I wanted to be a fashion designer when I was a kid. This is like my into the fashion world. So Trendalytics is this analytics company for fashion brands, so it handles tracking of like fashion metrics or whatnot. And I was so excited because I was joining as a business analyst, I think. So at that point, I had declared my computer science major, but I wasn't sure if I wanted to move into software engineering. So I was applying to like random things and random internships that didn't relate to software engineering. So I was really, really excited for that internship, and a lot of the people that I met at the office, they were so stylish, and I was like, oh, this is my life. I'm gonna be this fashion queen in fashion tech. Yeah, that didn't end up working out. A month before my internship was about to start, I lost my job. I think the company ran out of funding or something like that, and they apparently couldn't take on interns. The startup program coordinator even offered to pay all of our stipends, which was not even that much. It was like $5,000 per intern, and they only had 2 interns coming on, me and this other girl. But they were like, yeah, we can't take on interns, like, nah, just sorry, like, bye. And then they ghosted us. So I started interviewing for a ton of random startups that I didn't even care about. And one of them was this place called Timescale, which they're doing so well right now, and I'm actually really happy that they are doing well. At this point, Timescale was a 5 or 6 person startup. It was very small. They had a little office in Midtown. It was right next to the place I was living as well. So as part of the program, we were living in the Princeton, New York, the PCNY building, which is the Princeton Alumni Building. So every morning I'd wake up at like 8:39, walk 4 minutes to the building, and then start work. It was a great experience. I think that was my first real technical internship experience, and I learned so much from it. I remember when I was interviewing, the CTO was actually like, yeah, so I know why you're here. You obviously can't get an internship at Google, which is why you're interviewing for a place like us. And I was like, oh, this man is just flaming me out here. He was right. I mean, I wasn't able to get into the STEP program. I didn't even get like an initial interview for Google when I applied. I did end up getting an offer from Timescale as well as one other place, but I decided to go with Timescale because first of all, they're honest with me. Like, they knew, you know, the type of intern I'd be, which is a learning intern as opposed to a doing intern. And I ended up doing a lot for that internship actually, so I'm proud of myself. The CEO, CTO, everyone was really nice when I met them, so that summer was so fun. That was probably my favorite summer ever in my entire college experience. So the last internship I did was actually at Google, and I still can't believe to this day that I got an internship with Google. I applied to Google as any computer science major probably does. I didn't hear back from them, so I did my whole interview process with a ton of different companies. I went to Grace Hopper that year, which was a phenomenal experience. If you're a woman in tech, highly recommend Grace Hopper. You get so many opportunities from there. You kind of just like hand out internships in a sense. I got a few internship offers from places like Expedia, Foursquare, and there was a couple of others, but I don't remember too clearly. So by the time I was done with all of those interviews and got all those offers, that was when my process with Google started. So I remember applying very early in the year and not hearing back and kind of like losing hope, but I didn't really have hope at that point. I was just like, oh, it's Google, they're probably not going to take me. So I remember the first stage of the interview process was they sent a coding interview with a timer. I think it was an hour or something like that, and they had 2 problems. I could not get a running piece of code for either of the problems. Oh, it was so bad. So instead of deleting everything, I just commented out everything in my code and submitted it. I was like, there's no way they're gonna contact me because neither of my answers work. It was really, really bad. I'm pretty sure I had some form of a working solution in there if I had just like fixed some things up. And I'm so glad I commented everything out as opposed to like erasing everything, because the thing that I realized is that they probably looked at your thought process and the way you build your logic as opposed to whether or not you have something that works, because I clearly didn't have something that works. So I sent that in, lost hope, and kind of just redirected my attention towards these other offers and internships. And then I got an interview request, which I thought was really weird because I had completely botched my coding interview. So I ended up doing 2 interviews on the phone. Then I got that email that said, congrats, the next step is team matching. And I was like, team matching? What does that mean? So basically I filled out a form with preferences for the teams, technologies, projects, interests, and other things. And that form is what different teams at Google look at when they're trying to select an intern. And I ended up joining the second team that I had a call with. And yeah, so I did an internship in the Mountain View office. That was a really great summer. And then I had to re-interview for a return offer. And that leads us to the next question, which is, what was the job search like, and did I start working at Google right after graduating? I did start working at Google right after graduating. The job interview process was actually pretty rough when I was trying to get full-time offers. I was constantly getting to the last stage of the interviews for all of these different companies, and I think I got like 8 or 9 different offers, but they weren't very competitive offers in terms of compensation, the work that I'd be doing, or even like the teams that I was working on. So I decided to take my return offer at Google. And the process for converting from internship to full-time is actually that you do 2 interviews at the end of your internship. So I did this junior summer. I studied all that summer because I was really nervous. For most tech companies, I believe they don't re-interview you for a return offer, but for some reason Google does. I did a lot of mock interviews with my coworkers, and I ended up getting a question that my roommate had asked me the night prior to prep me for my coding interviews the next day, and I was just so freaking blessed. I was like, oh my Jesus Lord, this is the best question you could have asked me. So that was what it was like transitioning into a full-time offer. So the next category of questions is more about Google itself. What is the interview process at Google? So to answer for the interview process, I'm sure full-time is a little bit different than the process that I took for becoming a full-time software engineer at Google. But usually the first few interviews that you do will be technical. A Google engineer will ask you 1 or 2 questions, have you write some code, and then they'll be on the call with you kind of to help guide you and answer any questions and evaluate your code. Pretty standard across different tech companies. They'll most likely do an on-site, but that's typically a full day of just interviews, and interviews. Usually they'll bring you on-site to the campus, you'll have lunch with an engineer or 2, and they just grill you on like technical and behavioral interviews. And I'm sure some of you will be curious how hard the interview process is, and it's hard depending. So I also interview for Google now, and one of the things that I've realized is that it's actually pretty variable in terms of how your interview will go, depending on who your interviewer is. So usually for interviews, the interviewer can pick the question. So it's really hard to gauge how difficult the interview process is. For me, it was medium on a scale from like easy to hard. There were definitely questions that I didn't answer completely or fully, but now as an interviewer, I realized that they evaluate you on your thinking as opposed to your final solution. So if you're ever interviewing with these companies, just know that you should definitely talk through what you're thinking, because that's what they're looking at. Try to ask as many questions that indicate how you're thinking as much as possible, and if you don't get a solution, that's not the end of the world. I know for a fact that Google has gotten rid of those teaser questions. I don't know what they're called, but they don't ask you random questions like, if an egg falls from the top of the building, how many people do you need to clean it off the floor once it falls? Not the right question. But usually for behaviorals, because I've been doing a lot of behavioral interviews recently, one of the things I used to believe was, oh, you just gotta be personable and that's all. And now I realize that there's a whole list of things that companies evaluate you on. And so when you're telling stories or trying to interact with them, it's very important that you convey qualities, like very positive qualities, because they might ask you like, what are your strengths and weaknesses? If you just tell them flat, like, my strengths and weaknesses are this, it's not as effective as if you give an example or a story of this time that you demonstrated leadership or you were a great teammate or something like that. Next question is, what is it like working at Google? What are the perks? It's great. Google is really conscientious of trying to maintain this culture that they are proud of. And I think in doing so, it also boasts a lot of employee happiness. So I'm very happy right now. To be quite honest though, I was unhappy a year ago if you had asked me. Since it is a big company, a lot of the culture depends on what team you're on. If you're on a team that has a very high stress culture, it can get very stressful. If you're on a team with low stress culture, it's not stressful. I had a friend who worked 5 hours a day at Google, woke up at like 10 and did work at anywhere from 2 to 5. And he was having a great time. And then meanwhile, I was on my computer at 10 p.m. at night, grinding away. And obviously that's not something that, my team requires of me. But I'm a very impressionable person, and I also get very anxious and stressed a lot of the time. So on my first team, while it was a great team and I have nothing but good things to say about everyone on the team, I think the work culture was a little more high stakes because I was working in the ads. And so sometimes I had this internal deadline in my head, like I need to finish this and send it out today, and I want to get promoted, so let me work overtime and do all these things. And that burnt me out so badly. But that's nothing to say about what Google is like. Google itself has so many good perks. Free food, they have a ton of cafeterias in the office, which I will try to take you guys along next time when I'm in the office. Don't know when that's gonna be, but hopefully soon. Snacks all the time. I drink coconut water every single day when I'm in the office. They also have massage chairs, and they also expense a lot of your work equipment. Also, one of the random perks that I look forward to using is parental leave. I think they've extended it to the point that it's half a year now. So if I were to get pregnant next year, which James, I don't know if you're watching. I don't know if I'm ready to be pregnant actually. If I were to get pregnant, I would essentially be paid for 6 months while I'm pregnant. I think it's 6 months. I hope I'm not saying this. And I'm loosely saying it's 6 months, but it might be anywhere from like 4 to 6 months. And then there are just other miscellaneous perks, like Google will cover 50% of any classes that you take. So there's a whole fund for Googlers to learn different things, and they'll pay for half of it. You get great 401k matching, which is retirement fund stuff. So you can put your money in there and Google will give you some money to retire, which is great. And the other really great perk, which I guess if you're in college or even younger, this doesn't really matter to you, but health insurance is pretty darn good. The basic health insurance that Google offers is free for our Googlers, and the deductible is also not too high, so it's something like $1,500. Also, one thing is they are a dog-friendly campus, so sometimes if you go to the office, there are dogs around. There was actually a really cute dog the other day, I think a Samoyed, when I was in the office. I'll try to dig up a video or a photo, but yeah, anyways. I think this video is going on for way too long, so I'm just gonna do a speed round of easy questions that I'll try to answer in a couple of seconds or less. What is my favorite coding language? So I really like Java, and I think I would say Java, but recently I've been working a lot with C++ and also TypeScript. Yeah. Does Google pay you well? The answer is yes, and I realized I didn't get to talk about pay and compensation and negotiations and everything, so I'll put that in the next video. I think a lot of people are curious about pay, so I'll make sure to touch on that next time. What skills do you need to succeed at your job? Critical thinking is the first one. I think as a software engineer, you definitely need to have some sort of math skills, but I don't think it's essential. Like, you can be really bad at math but still code. So those two. And there's a ton of smaller skills depending on like the specialty you have. So if you're a front-end engineer, you probably need to have some form of like design thinking, design skills. It's also something that I do want to go more into maybe in a different video. How hard is coding on a scale of 1 to 10? I got many questions like this. I think it's not a matter of being hard or easy, more so redefining the way you approach problems. I also got some questions on what exactly coding is, and I can kind of answer that, but it's also hard to say. So a lot of the times when you're coding, you're trying to build something from scratch. So any of the apps you see or anything on the internet that you see is being derived from code. The same way that you would write a series of instructions for someone to read when they're trying to bake something or cook something, coding is kind of similar. So you're writing a series of instructions and steps for a computer to follow. So you'll define your variables, in this case your ingredients, and then you'll have different steps for each aspect of the program that you're writing. That's a high level explanation. I don't know if that was a good explanation, but that's how I kind of see coding. So the thing that makes this interesting is when you're writing a recipe, it's usually in your own language, but the computer interprets recipes or code differently than we read English. And so on top of having to build out these instructions, you also need to learn a new coding language. And every coding language is different, but there are some very basic fundamentals that are the same way that like nouns, verbs, and adjectives are universal. And that is my high-level overview of what coding is. In terms of whether or not it's hard or easy, it does depend on the coding language. I think some languages are just much harder to code, debug, which is trying to fix issues and find and fix issues. I personally don't like C++, so I think C++ is harder than Java, for example. But there's a lot of resources out there that can help you learn how to code. And once you have the fundamentals down, it's very easy to build something simple. The difficulty of coding also depends on the project that you're working on. Obviously, if you're just doing a simple Hello World app, that's going to be pretty easy. But if you're trying to build a full mobile app that does X, Y, and Z, then that's obviously going to be a lot more difficult. Okay, I'm going to do like 3 more questions and then I'm going to end this video because I think it is way too long. I've been filming for 3 hours at this point. I also wanted to pin this comment because I thought it was funny. Yeah, I don't really talk about my work life outside of YouTube that much, but I'm hoping I do. I hope that you guys enjoy this video. Do you prefer the keyboard of your laptop or have you tried using a mechanical keyboard? That's funny. I don't know why. I just use my laptop keyboard. I like how Apple has the layout. I don't know. My posture is really bad now because of my job. I've tried ergonomic keyboards before. There's one that I really like, but I just don't have space on my desk to have a separate keyboard. So I just put my laptop in front of my monitor and then I'll just type on my laptop keyboard. Yeah. How do you prevent your eyes from screen light? Oh my god. I feel like my eyes are degenerating. Is that the right word? My eyes are deteriorating so quickly. Oh, I don't know, honestly. I do have the blue light filtering on my glasses, so I heard that works, but there's no way for me to verify. One thing that I did when I was working in Maryland, I would always look out the window at the grass. And I don't know where I read this, but I think looking at green helps for your eyes to adjust. Maybe I'm making that up. But yeah, I just like to take pauses and then look out the window at something farther away because I am nearsighted. And so I think if I focus too long on something that's close to me, it's really hard for my eyes to readjust to the outside. So yeah, that's not really a good tip. Work-life balance is something that I do want to talk about in a later video. I feel like I'm pushing everything to the next video. So I didn't get through nearly as many questions as I wanted to, but if you're in tech or if you're not in tech and you're just perusing my channel, I hope this was helpful or even insightful. If you have any more questions, feel free to leave it down below. And I hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. And I will catch you guys next time. Peace.